Hello and welcome. We are excited today to have Luke join us. And Luke, we have this intensive next week all about parts work, which obviously we're advertising. We have one spot left. We want to make sure that people know about that. But as you and I were talking back and forth about this opportunity, you shared some of your experience with parts work that I thought would be so helpful. Whether or not you come, your partner comes, doesn't matter. Parts work helps. And so we wanted to share this resource and tool just so you out there listening know one more type of therapy and help that you can get that really, really makes a difference in this work.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to talk about this topic because, Luke, as I've watched you in your journey, you've done a lot of healing work, and all of that healing work has been good. And each one has offered different elements. But from an outsider's perspective, it really seems like the parts work, as you've dived in and found a therapist who specialized in IFS and also who understands sexual addiction. I've just seen such for lack of better word, just a deeper healing that seems to be happening as you're doing this type of work.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for saying that. And I'm a little bit, frankly, there's been times after I did this parts work stuff where I've been mad because I've been mad that I didn't have this earlier in my journey. Like, I'm like, how many years am I in my journey? And then getting this later is very, very interesting.
Can I ask you, like, when you say mad, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. Thanks for saying that. Just like, why didn't somebody share this with me earlier? What the hell? Like, how did I go through this much of my journey and not have this part? Not have this information. That's my story. That's my experience. That's what I've done. But I didn't get this information like 2 weeks in or 3 months in. It took a while before I discovered parts work. So
And the parts work can be so foundational because what it really does is it helps you learn how to love yourself and all the parts of you. And I have yet to work with an individual who has had a pattern of sexual acting out. I cannot talk today. Who doesn't at some level have some self-loathing or some self-hatred. And so really healing comes through loving ourselves, not hating ourselves. So it's so foundational. And sometimes we really miss this piece in the recovery work.
yeah, absolutely. It's so easy. It doesn't make a lot of sense when you first heard about it. Okay, so you want me to jump into it?
Sure, yeah. Actually, no, can I just validate one thing for about partners?
Yeah, please. Would you?
Okay, sometimes when you're in your healing journey and you're in the beginning, and I'll say, like, I was so there as a betrayed partner. I wanted somebody to come slap you on the wrist. Actually, no, I wanted someone to hit you with a 2x4. I wanted you to have that accountability. And it scared the crap out of me that somebody would come and tell you, you need to learn how to love yourself. You need to learn how to take care of yourself. Because that felt really threatening of like, he already is so focused on himself. You're telling me he's going to be more selfish. And so I just want to clarify or just speak to that can bring up some fear. And this does not take away, like, as we talk about this and loving our parts, doesn't take away any of the accountability. What it does is it allows the person who has acted outside of their values and has been in hiding, it allows them to learn how to love themselves at that whole complete level, which means looking at it and seeing what reality is, being accountable to it, and learning how to still love yourself so you can heal and move forward.
Yeah. And I'm gonna say this in a really black and white way, and I know it's not this black and white. If you're the partner in healing, the betrayed partner, and you're listening to this, and you're like, why can't he have empathy for me? Let's maybe oversimplify it a little bit. It's because he doesn't have empathy for himself. He can't give you something he doesn't have for himself. So if this feels like unfair, what we're about to go through, or unjust, I'm not gonna push back on that. We're not gonna push back on that today. And if you hate it, like, it's okay. Like, that makes all the sense in the world, and you don't have to hold this for your partner. You don't have to be there with them in this. You don't have to be some person that's supportive through this part of their journey. If that's something you choose to do, I mean, great, but it's not something you have to do.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah. You really have to learn how to have empathy for yourself and understand what empathy for yourself looks like and feels like to be able to give that as a gift to somebody else.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. So here's how it looked for me. I'm just going to give you just a scenario so you can go through every little emotion maybe that I went through. And then Alana, please share with us how it would have impacted you. Okay. So there was this, I went to therapy and it's kind of newer with this therapist. And so I was filling him out a little bit. It made a transition and it was new. I was just trying to get some trust for him and he almost got himself fired over it. I know that sounds a little weird, but here's how it went down. I went to him and I said, "Hey, I want to share this with you. It drives me crazy because I'm not brand new in my journey and I'm starting to feel like Alana's leaving for the weekend and she's going to go do a girls trip, a girls experience with her friends. And I am thinking about different types of acting out behavior. I'm thinking of these things coming to my mind. And I'm just like, I'm not okay with it. I hate it. And I feel like it's just like residual and it's hanging around and I don't want it. So could you like help me get rid of this? And he said this to me and I'm like, I'll never forget. And he's like, well, that part of you that wants to go act out side of your values, can you acknowledge that part? I'm like, what? Excuse me? You want me to acknowledge that part that wants to act out that would destroy my family? And he worked with me through it, but here's how it went down. He said that I was turned off to it. And I said, no, I don't want to acknowledge that part. And I don't know why you're saying that. And the next thing is that happened is we started to go down this path of what is that part feel like inside of your body? What are you experiencing? That wanting to act out. And he took me down this journey of like, where do I notice it and what does it feel like? And then he got to a part where he's like, what is it trying to do? What is it trying to help you with? I'm like, yeah, it'll destroy my family. And he said, yeah, but what is it trying to ultimately accomplish? And what I recognize because of the acting out behavior that it wanted me to do was it viewed something as a problem. Okay. It didn't want the behavior, but it wanted to solve a problem that I had. So he started taking me down this road. What's the problem? And I know, like, all at the end of this session, I'm like, oh, Alana's leaving. Okay. Alana's, she's headed out of town. Who she headed out of town with? She's out of town with his girlfriends. She is rejecting you, Luke. She doesn't want to be around you, which is totally not even close to true. But I felt levels of rejection. And that part wanted to protect me from feeling that rejection. So what it is, it stepped in and provided a solution, which is an opportunity to feel chemicals that are involved in what connection feels like, which is certain types of behavior. And I didn't like that more. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's interesting. But that part is helping me feel not rejected through this behavior, but I'm still not okay with it. Like, I still hate it. Let's kill it off. And then he said, well, when is the first time that you remember feeling like this experience of somebody leaving and feeling rejected? And we went on this journey of, yeah, I remember this often when somebody would do something that I would feel very alone, but it didn't have to do with rejection. And they said, okay, so it started showing up. How old were you? And I was like, first remember when I was like 8. Okay, so how did it want you to handle that? And it said really just anything to not feel that fear with being alone. Okay. So was that helpful back then? I said, yeah, because I felt really alone back then. So that part started to be born out of protecting that 8-year-old part of me. Okay. But the things that would offer me, I started to draw the conclusion over a period of time that that being alone was embarrassing and bad. So the way I would go about being alone started to get some really dark sides of it. And it evolved into something that we call a maladaptive coping mechanism, but it was born out of this sense of protecting you and never allowing you to feel something again that you felt that was bad and horrible. So as I sat there, and all of a sudden there was a value that kicked in that had never, ever, ever kicked in before. And I said, oh my gosh, this part of me that I hate, it's trying to take care of an 8-year-old. It's trying to take care of a part that got hurt a long time ago. And it's not going at, it doesn't want this behavior. It wants to make sure I never feel this again. And it doesn't have a very good way to do it. So they asked me the question again, can you acknowledge that part? And I said, oh, I know what you're asking. You're asking me, can I acknowledge how it's trying to help and what it's trying to do? Not accept that part of me and value how it's going about it as much as, can you see that part doing its job and how important it sees its job as? And I'm like, yeah, because I know what this is like. And that part taking their job really, really seriously matters. And as I said that, all of a sudden it started to shift for me. And I'm like, whoa, what's this shift about? And it was like, well, I don't view that as heinous and as evil as I used to. And then I felt like this other thing start to happen, which is now I have a different type of energy around this of, instead of fighting something off, now I'm like, now I'm like being proactive about how I feel about myself rather than reactive. Instead of trying to hide, now I'm like more in this energy of taking care of me. And what that is about when it comes to parts work is you say, hey, part that you're that's trying to take care of a wounded part of you. Thank you. I acknowledge you. I appreciate you for making sure that that other part of me doesn't feel abandoned. But guess what? I've got this. I've got it. I've got you and I've got that other part that's wounded. And I'm here. You're not alone in your job anymore. Okay. You don't have to protect that part of you. I can do that. And that energy I was not going to be able to find that way until I learned to see what was actually happening. So anyway, that's my story with a part of parts work of
Mm.
seeing why what was going on inside of me, acknowledging it, showing appreciation for the protection side, was trying to protect it, and then allowing a shift of energy to happen to more adult part of me that could take care instead of a maladaptive part.
Mhm. That fear you talked about around validating that part, seeing that part, acknowledging that part, validating that part, and being like, "No, this part is what's destroying my family." I see that. I see that with clients. It is a real visceral fear that if I give this part any room or any space, then it will burn the house down. It will ruin everything. But what you just highlighted there was so like the exact opposite. That when you actually, and you can't just do this cognitively, it actually like doing it with the safety of somebody else who their nervous system is grounded and regulated, and they can gently create that safety and walk you through that so you can feel all of the feelings as you're exploring this. It's just so beautiful. It allowed you then to explore that part and actually see how it's helping because every part of us is trying to help in some ways. So it's figuring out, understanding, and seeing the way it's trying to help. And I love that when you actually gave it that attention, that's what diffuses it. That's what allows for the healing to happen. So often the things that we are most scared to face is the key to the healing. It is the key to the moving forward. So I love that you slowed that down and just walked us through that journey.
Yeah. And I love that you'd said as part of what a therapist job does. You didn't say a therapist, but you have somebody step in that acts as in parts work, acts as the role of self,
Mhm.
which is, and I get thoughts and feelings intact, and then is able to get curious and ask like those questions. And what that professional does is they hand that off to you and they go, okay, can you acknowledge, can you validate that part of you that feels abandoned and alone? And that has a job to do, which is to fix that in any way possible. Can you validate? And then what you do is okay, all right, I see what you're doing. Okay, I'm going to attempt to do the same thing. And when it's hard work that is not done alone, to your point.
And th- I, d- I don't believe as long as you're hating parts of yourself, you truly can heal. And that, I know some of you will hear that and have feelings around that because of some really deep hatred towards parts. But I'm telling you again, like the key to healing is learning to understand those parts, to see them, to understand them, to love them, and to heal them so you can have that whole complete healing.
Okay, so that's beautiful. So let's talk about specific examples around that. So I wanted that part to die. Let's say I could, which is not possible. I could kill that part of it. What we don't recognize is that part on a good day has another job that is actually super helpful. So I've understood that part of me that is very worried about that part that feels abandoned is actually really on a good day, really empathetic towards other people. Very aware of what other people experience. And what would have been like if I could kill that part of me off? The other part that's aware of other people's experience, which is weird because of what it wanted me to do is totally not aware of other people's experience, but it was aware of that part. I can't kill it no matter what, but if I did, what would be lost if I did? So that part needs a job, just another job in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. In IFS, that's called unburdening. It's like finding out what the part is doing. And often you find that part doesn't want to be doing it the way they're doing it. They just don't know how else to do it. And so when you unburden that part, you figure out healthier, different ways of still achieving the taking care of you.
Alana, can you speak more to watching somebody like me go through it and what you noticed? Because I would love to say, like, as soon as you do it, you like, it's all rainbows and puppies. The work of, oh, wow, I got a part. Because I shared like the awareness, but what do you notice when people start to do parts work? What happens?
It's not rainbows and puppies, though I love puppies and kittens. No, it's like all healing. Like it's up and down and messy and beautiful and hard and good and all of the above. But I think what I've seen in it often, like the end result is a relief. I think that's the end result. The process is uncomfortable when we're looking at those places that we typically have been trying to block out and not see. So there is discomfort in that. And in the discomfort is where the growth zone is.
Mhm.
And so I think about even being at a personal level, watching somebody I care about who's doing their parts work. It's interesting because there's times like today, not literally today, but today in general, today where you get activated around something. And until you check in with your parts and actually tend to your parts, the activation persists. So you have the activation happens and well, you have lots of choices, but I'm going to narrow it down to like you have one of two choices. One is to numb out and try to ignore the feelings. Two is that you now do the parts work and you go check in with those parts and you tend to those parts. And I was talking to a client one time and he was talking about really wanting to show up for his wife. And he was saying, I'm not going to give any details, but he was very, very activated. And he's like, I got to shove this down. I got to shove all this down so I can show up for her. Because that's what he was taught. He was taught, don't worry about you. You're going to hold her pain. The problem with that message, and you do need to learn to hold the pain, but the problem with that message is he was shoving his parts down, saying, shut up, parts, shut up, shoving them down, never tending to them. And guess what? His wife didn't feel at all connected with him. He's like trying to connect with her and trying to connect with her. And he's trying to like do what he's been told. And she's not feeling it because his own nervous system is so dysregulated. Her body is reading danger, danger, danger. So guess what? And this is what he and I talked about is if you can even take a couple minutes and tend to your parts and see what they need, see why they're being activated, validate some of those deeper feelings, or tend to the parts in a way of, I notice you, and we're going to spend some time tonight working through this. and I see you. I'm coming back and I'm going to go tend to my wife. Or I see you, I validate you. I'm going to spend time to figure out here. I'm going to validate that part that's feeling rejected. I'm going to validate that part that's feeling unseen. And then when I'm regulated, I can go back. And now with your tended parts and your regulated nervous system, guess what? Your ability to hold her pain went from a 1 or 2 to like an 8 or 9.
Oh, it's everything. It's night and day. It goes
It's
from
huge.
I want to run away from her, or I can't do this, to I actually want to be here and in this moment.
Now, I know we're about at time and we like the concept we just brought up is a really big in-depth
Yeah.
concept. So if you hear that and you're like, oh my gosh, how the hell do I even get there? You're not alone in that. A couple of books that I might just throw on the table. Anything you want to learn about parts work, but No Bad Parts, Altogether You, Altogether Us are a couple of parts books that can get you started in your learning. But if you are an individual who has had sexual acting out outside of your values and you want to do an intensive specifically around this parts work, we have one spot coming up next week. Trying to think of what the dates are next week. March 11th, I believe.
I'm looking at my calendar. Yeah, the 11th. Yeah, the 12th, 13th, and 14th, but we do a little bit on the 11th.
Yep, in the evening of the 11th, kicking it off. So we would love to have you join us. And hopefully this episode at least got your brain thinking and you found it helpful today.
I think we're probably going to do a part 2 also. Yeah, so y'all, if you're the person that got hurt, was betrayed, and this is painful, or if it's validating, just respect that. And if you're the person that's has not done parts work and hasn't leaned into it, don't wait, jump into it, invest in yourself. But anyway, it's good to hang out with you all. Hey guys, I am super excited to talk to you about our latest intensive that we have coming up. It's called Men's Journey to Wholeness. Prior to this, many of you attended Unmasked, and Men's Journey to Wholeness is the next level of recovery. It's more of phase 2 recovery. It's a relationship with self, so we can have a relationship with others. You're welcome to join us in the beautiful Spanish Fork area, and we are going to be having this on March 12th through the 14th. But let me tell you a little bit about it. It's a 3-day intensive. There's going to be a lot of transformational connection going on. That's going to be the focus. We're going to dive into the work. We're open to all men. The focus is we're going to be building deeper relationship with yourself. A lot of times men are trying to kill that part of them that made these horrible choices. They don't like that part of them. We're going to identify that part of us, and we're going to allow us to see something that we haven't seen before. We're going to learn about how your protective parts protect and how they've shielded you from things and how they're still shielding you from things. And we're going to release some of those burdens. There's going to be activities. There's going to be experiential workshops. There's going to be hands-on exercises. There's going to be a lot of guided support. There'll be a couple surprises. You won't be sworn to secrecy, but it's going to be pretty fun to see everybody engage in the type of activities we have coming up for you. And let me tell you what a fair outcome might be if you decide to do something like this. By the end of the intensive, you're going to be able to embrace a part of yourself that maybe you haven't before and have some awareness around it. Much deeper connection with yourself and removing some of those barriers that keep you isolated. Also unburden yourself from the heaviness of the secrets. The secrets might be out there, but the burden of sharing parts of you that you just don't feel like you can share with other people. We'll give you some direction on how to sign up. Space is limited. I hate saying that. Definitely want you to hurry to registration. Reach out to us if you have questions. We will give you more information about how to sign up in the notes of this podcast and on our website. Hopefully we can see you there.